Hey everyone, Amia here from Resonance Astrology, and welcome to my channel. And if you're new here, hi, welcome to my channel. I'm an ancient Hellenistic astrologer. I mainly focus on ancient Hellenistic astrology, but I also blend in a mix of modern astrology as well. And we're back for the astrology of the week ahead. And you might have noticed I got a new mic. I'm kind of testing it out. I just feel like I want to try out these tiny mics because I have some plans and perhaps maybe filming a bit more outdoorsy just because I like this setup and it's great for podcasting, but I'm a person, I like to move, so it feels better if I have more freedom to record on the go. So let's see where we're gonna head with that. But to not ramble too much, and we can get straight into the astrology of the week ahead. The main point of the week ahead is really a big emphasis on the Leo full moon that we're having on Wednesday this upcoming week. And there's kind of a preamble or like an amplification because we're rolling off from, on Sunday, we are just coming off from the Mercury Sun conjunction in Aquarius, and then on Monday we have Mercury squaring Uranus, and then on Tuesday the Sun is squaring Uranus, and then we kind of have the Leo full moon also chiming in, also squaring Uranus. So it's kind of like a T-square, and there seems to be a bit of tension that is building up this week, and you should probably already feel it if you haven't been feeling it by the end of this week, at least the beginning of this week. Because oftentimes full moons, like the energy of the full moon, can be felt most intense a few days before the actual full moon. So don't be surprised if you've already been feeling some tension or getting some sleepless nights. The energy should definitely wane off once the full moon is over because we don't have so much going on after that by the end of the week. We have Mercury moving into Pisces, but that's about it. Other than that, there aren't any major aspects going on after Wednesday. So we're ending this week on a bit of a chill note, which I think is very needed with the intense astrology that we started off this year. I think mid-February, like mid to end February, is kind of getting us a bit of a break before we enter March, which will be a big month when it comes to the astrology. But let's get back into the week. And so, as I already mentioned, we have Mercury squaring Uranus, Sun squaring Uranus, and I think this is kind of propelling this idea further that we already encountered with when Mercury and the Sun conjoined Pluto, and now when they conjoin together, forming the Cazimi moment. And now it's like Uranus is shaking things up, and we're like, okay, how do I want to live my life? How do I want to create more freedom into my life? Where do I want to be more innovative? And Mercury obviously having a lot to do with our thinking patterns and the way we communicate, how we show up, how we might better communicate our ideas. And then this T-square with the full moon in Leo just bringing in this tension. I think it's the old long tension that Aquarius and Leo tend to have, which are opposing signs, which is often, what about me? What about us? So you might really be thinking, how do I want to be in service to the world while still not neglecting my own self and my own needs? How can I first also be in service to myself? I think this is kind of the tension that we're getting here a bit, because ultimately the best you want to do is to take best of both worlds and first fill your own cup so you're thriving, and then you can pour out much more to be of service to humanity. But the square to Uranus as well, which is in Taurus, kind of also posing in the question of, okay, but I want it to be done in a healthy way. How can I do this in a way where I am standing up for myself? And I'm just thinking, because we also have Mars still in Cancer, Venus in Aries, and both of these planets are kind of umping up this feeling of being like an underdog and standing up for ourselves and our rights and speaking up. And I think this is kind of just amplifying it. All of the transits seem to lead to kind of the same thing right now, which is very interesting. And the core seems to really be a heightened sense of independence and seeking freedom, seeking individuation, and the need to creatively express oneself, either in the personal world or outside in the online world. And the T square, I personally, I always like to see conflicting energies and opposing energies, but especially squares as opportunities, because conflict is often the things we need to get things going and to make changes. So ultimately, I really think that Mercury, Sun, and the Moon forming an aspect to Uranus is forcing us to really go out there and get things going, because nobody's going to come save us. We're responsible for our reality, so we might as well stand up for ourselves and help in creating that reality that we wish to do. In a way, I think it's a really big wake-up call, and if we plant the seeds now, we might have a really good harvest in when the year starts to advance. But I do want to put out a small disclaimer, since all transits obviously can have their light and shadow sides, and I guess the shadow side of such a transit would be something like amping yourself up too much, almost in a bit of a manic way, being very sleepless and restless, not knowing where to put your energy that is coming up, like having a too excessive urge to be independent in a way where it's just about you and you're not thinking about other people. This would be the other extreme of thinking only about other people and having a sort of helper syndrome. So I think there's really this, the two opposing factors are really like, how much am I taking care of myself and how much am I taking care of the world and being in service of the world, which I'm kind of just reiterating what I said in the beginning, but yeah, there's just something that happens when we aren't willing to settle down and when we don't have the ability to cooperate and compromise with others. So I think this is what this week is asking of us. Where should I compromise and where should I not compromise? Where do I have to be willing to cooperate more and where do I need to set my boundaries for my own sake? But ultimately, if you want to use this transit for something good, use it to express your innovative and creative ideas, especially if you've had the urge to speak out and you haven't for a long, long time, or if you've had these creative energies brewing inside of you and for some reason you just, something felt blocked. I think Uranus, when Uranus comes in, or I guess the other planets are respecting Uranus, there's really this eclectic breakthrough and change that can happen where we're like, now I have the guts to actually go out there. And as Anais Nin said, I really love this quote. I have it here on my wall just as a reminder for this whole year. She says, life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage. And I think this is like a quote that can be summarized when we look at this week ahead. So yeah, be aware of that. Jupiter has also stationed direct, so we are in a bigger expansion mode right now. And this is really the first part of the week, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Then on Thursday, we don't really have anything going on, but the moon will move into Virgo. And first of all, the moon in Virgo, just as a general horoscope thing we would look at, would be like, okay, we are more in our analytical minds and thinking about things, but we have a lunar eclipse in the beginning of March in the sign of Virgo. So I do think there's something that we might like circle back around with that is happening on around Thursday and Friday of this upcoming week, because it might come back when the eclipse happens in March. And the eclipse is a south node eclipse, and the south node eclipse has to do with decrease, essentially, in a very simple way. And I think the parts in our charts where Virgo is active, like the house that Virgo rules over in your chart, will be highlighted, will be activated. And because the south node has to do with decrease, I think a lot of us are stepping away from these people-pleasing behaviors where we sacrifice ourselves or where we're overanalyzing and overthinking instead of trusting. And then what I think makes this whole part interesting around Friday is that on Friday we have Mercury moving into the sign of Pisces and the moon is in Virgo at that time. And then when the Virgo eclipse happens in March, one day later, Mercury stations retrograde. So there is a story going on. And I'm saying this because Mercury is the ruler of Virgo. So there is definitely like some circling around that is going on with this Virgo moon that is happening on Thursday and Friday. And Mercury is in a debilitated position in Pisces. It's in its fall in Pisces. So not the best Mercury, so to say, not in its most natural environment. But I think we really need Mercury in Pisces right now. And there's a whole video I made. If you haven't watched this video, check it out. I'm talking about why Aries and Pisces, the zodiac signs, especially if you have placements at the last 10 degrees of Pisces or the first 10 degrees of Aries, are very much highlighted this year because we have the Venus retrograde going over these degrees, we have the Mercury retrograde going over in these degrees, we have Saturn retrograde going over in these degrees, and we have the Neptune retrograde also going over in these degrees. So they're very much highlighted. And it's also expanding the whole fact of this Pisces Aries, the sign boundary, like the threshold between Pisces and Aries, which has a lot to do with death and rebirth. I know it's this word that gets thrown around a lot, so I kind of almost don't really want to use it, but the Pisces Aries axis really is a lot about death and rebirth and about using our imagination to our benefit, because everything starts within our imagination. If we can imagine things, if we have an image in our mind that we can move towards, so it's super important. But then in Aries, the question is like, okay, but how can we manifest this into earthly reality? What are you willing to do for the imagination, for the images, for your dreams? What are you willing to put into? Because Pisces is a Jupiter-ruled sign, Venus has its exaltation there. So both benefic planets do extremely well there. That's why it is such a dreamy sign. But then in Aries, we have Mars as the rulership and then the Sun in its exaltation. So it's so much about taking action for our life path, moving forward and doing the sacrifices that are necessary to create the life of our dreams that we have dreamed in the sign of Pisces. And this is kind of what is awaiting us. So I really love that Mercury is moving into the sign of Pisces, because I think it's really gonna amplify our imagination and perhaps also our enthusiasm. And we really need that, especially in these darker times. And then on Saturday, the moon moves into the sign of Libra. The moon in Libra isn't forming any super crazy aspects, although one that might be worth to mention is the fact that the moon is gonna oppose Venus in Aries, and Venus just kind of newly moved into the sign of Aries. And it's really just playing on the whole themes which I have been talking about since the beginning of the video, because the Aries Libra axis is once again this axis of where am I standing up for myself? Where am I being in service of other people? And Libra moons are generally focused on relationships, but now we have this Venusian moon that is ruled by Venus in Aries, where it's really like, okay, where am I not standing up for myself? Where do I need to speak up for myself and for my rights so things get done? Because things might not be getting done if you are not willing to take the action. And this is kind of really it for this week. It's not a super grand week, although it's definitely doing its fair share of things. There's definitely a small buildup that is happening and then waning by midweek. And as I already mentioned before, mid to late February, there isn't so much going on, which I think is for the best because we need to prepare for March. The astrology of March is quite intense, quite heavy. So I think it's good we're getting a bit of a breather before the chaos ensues. And I'll definitely talk much more about the astrology of March when we get to March, but this is it for now. I'll leave it at that. And if you like the video, please make sure to leave a thumbs up. It helps more than you know. Leave a comment, share this video if you find it useful. You can find all my socials down below, and I'll see you next week with the astrology of the week ahead. Bye.